The familiar scent of hay and metal clung to the air of the Cordell family barn. Silas had spent the morning hanging string lights across the rafters, transforming the workshop space into something Arlena deemed acceptable for a baby shower. Now he stood against the back wall, a bottle of water in his calloused hand while 30-some guests mingled around tables covered in blue tablecloths. Blue for a boy. His boy. At least, that's what he believed until 3 weeks ago. Silas took another sip of water, watching his wife move through the crowd. Arlena wore a flowing dress that accentuated her 7-month belly. Her blonde hair twisted up in some complicated arrangement that had taken her 2 hours to perfect. She laughed at something V whispered, throwing her head back in that practiced way that showed off her neck. "You doing all right, big brother?" Merritt appeared beside him, clapping him on the shoulder. "You got that 1,000-yard stare going." Silas nodded once. "Just tired. Shop's been busy." "Well, relax. Today's a good day." Merritt grinned, raising his champagne glass. "You gonna be a dad?" Silas studied his younger brother's face. The same Cordell jawline they both inherited from their father. But Merritt's features were softer, more animated. The favorite child, the charmer, the history teacher, all the local parents requested for their kids. "Yeah," Silas said finally. Across the room, their mother Maribel was arranging presents on a table. Her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. She caught Silas looking and nodded stiffly before returning to her task. 36 years. And he still could not read her approval in those eyes. Not like she looked at Merritt. "Everyone." Arlena's voice cut through the chatter. She stood in the center of the barn. Champagne flute raised high. "I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate this special day." The guests quieted, turning toward her. Silas straightened from the wall, setting his water bottle on a nearby table. "This baby boy is going to be surrounded by so much love." Arlena continued, her hand resting on her belly. "And I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to the most important men in my life." She beckoned to Silas and Merritt. "Come up here, you two." Silas crossed the room with measured steps, positioning himself beside her, but not touching. Merritt bounced forward, draping an arm casually around Arlena's shoulders. "To my husband Silas," Arlena said, turning toward him with a practiced smile. "Thank you for your stability." A few guests laughed softly at her careful choice of words. Silas inclined his head, his face impassive. "And to Merritt," she continued, her voice warming as she turned to her brother-in-law. She raised her glass higher, her eyes bright. "To Merritt, he's the one who truly raised this child." The words hung in the air. Silas felt 30 pairs of eyes flick between him and Merritt. His brother's smile faltered, then froze in place, his arms slipping from Arlena's shoulders, whose murmur rippled through the guests. V's mouth hung open, her eyes wide. Maribel had gone completely still at the gift table. Silas looked at his wife, at his brother. He nodded once, turned, and walked toward the barn door. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. "Silas," his mother called. He did not break strides. He pushed through the door into the cold evening air. The October chill bit through Silas' flannel shirt as he crossed the gravel drive toward the tree line. He did not look back at the barn, though he could hear the rising buzz of voices behind him. He parked his truck a quarter-mile down the old logging path away from the other vehicles, anticipating this exact moment. His breath plumed in front of him as he followed the familiar trail through the woods. Fallen leaves crunched beneath his boots. The light faded quickly under the canopy of trees, but Silas knew every root and stone on this path. He'd grown up here, tracking deer with his father while Merritt stayed home reading books with their mother. When he reached his truck, he climbed inside and sat in the darkness. He did not slam his fist against the steering wheel, did not scream, did not cry. Marine training had taught him that emotion clouded judgment, and he needed clarity now more than ever. He pulled out his phone and checked the security app. The cameras he installed throughout their house were functioning perfectly. The one in their bedroom showed an empty space. The cover still rumbled from where Alina had tossed him aside that morning, complaining about her back pain. Silas leaned his head against the headrest and closed his eyes. 3 weeks ago, he found the first evidence. 2 months before that, he noticed the changes in her behavior. 5 months before that, he started to have the feeling something was off. But the baby he wanted to believe in the baby that he reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small manila envelope. Inside, a DNA test result processed through a private lab 2 towns over. The words 0% probability of paternity were highlighted in yellow. Not his child. Never had been. The sudden tap on his window made him instinctively reach for a weapon that was not there. V's face peered through the glass, her breath fogging the window. Silas lowered the window halfway. What the hell was that? V demanded, hugging herself against the cold. Arlena is in there crying, saying you've been acting weird for weeks. Merritt looks like he's going to throw up. Everyone's leaving. Her heavily lined eyes narrowed. What's going on, Silas? Ask your friend, he said quietly. Better yet, ask my brother. What are you talking about? Go back to the party, V. She stepped back, studying him with suspicious eyes. Are you sleeping out here tonight? It's freezing. I've slept in worse. V hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But this is not over. No, Silas agreed. It's just beginning. After she left, he reclined his seat and pulled a wool blanket from behind it. He was not broken. He was calculating. By morning, everything would be in motion. Dawn light filtered through the trees as Silas approached his house, not their house, his house built on Cordell land with his own hands. He carried a small wooden box, one he crafted in his workshop months ago as a jewelry case for Arlena's birthday. Now held something far more valuable than jewelry. But he placed it on the front porch, noting Arlena's car in the driveway. She had not stayed at her mother's as he expected. That was fine. Better. Even instead of using his key, he rang the doorbell, then returned to his truck. He sat watching from across the street. Engine idling. 5 minutes passed before the door opened. Arlena appeared in her bathrobe. Hair disheveled. She looked down. Noticed the box. For a moment, she just stared at it. Then she bent to pick it up, glancing around as if sensing she was being watched. Silas waited until she closed the door, then drove away. He headed straight to his workshop. The metal fabrication business had been his father's. Now his. He expanded it over the years, hiring 2 other veterans who appreciated precision and quiet. The shop would not open for another 2 hours, giving him time to prepare. His phone buzzed just as he unlocked the front door. Arlena, what is this? Silas did not respond. Instead, he went to his office and booted up his computer. He plugged in a backup drive and began copying files, all the footage, all the recordings, all the evidence he'd been collecting for months. His phone continued to buzz. Arlena, Silas, answer me right now, Arlena. This is not funny, Arlena. Are you serious with this? A DNA test. Arlena, Silas, Arlena. I'm calling Merritt. That last message made him pause. He typed back a single reply. Silas, good. You should both see what's south on the drive. Then he silenced his phone and continued working. The next step would require perfect timing. 40 minutes later, his office phone rang. The caller ID showed Merritt's number. Silas let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again and again, done on the 4th call. He picked up. Cordell Metal Works, he said, as if he did not recognize the number. Silas, what the hell? Merritt's voice shook. What is this? What are you trying to pull? Nothing that was not already pulled on me. Silas replied evenly. These videos, this is invasion of privacy. You see, not just my house, my wife, my privacy was already invaded. Silas, you do not understand. I understand perfectly. The DNA test makes it pretty clear. Silas kept his voice level. You and Arlena can spin whatever story you want. But the truth is right there on that drive. We need to talk about this. Face to face. Nothing to talk about. Damn it, Silas. You see, not just Merritt's voice cracked. The baby is not mine. Silas's grip tightened on the phone and apparently never was meant to be. Please just meet me. We can. You'll reap what you planted. Silas hung up. He sat motionless for several minutes, listening to the ticking of the clock on the wall. Then he reached for his computer and began composing an email to his lawyer. Outside, the October wind picked up, rattling the shop windows. A storm was coming. Silas was ready for it. 6 months earlier, Silas noticed the change the moment he walked through the door. The house smelled different, like someone else's cologne. He set his lunchbox on the kitchen counter and listened. Nothing. Arlena should have been home. Her car was in the driveway. He called upstairs. Her voice sounded strained. I'm just picking out something for tonight. Silas climbed the stairs slowly, methodically, the way he approached everything. Second floor landing, turn right, master bedroom at the end of the hall. The door was ajar inside. Arlena stood in front of the full-length mirror, smoothing her dress with trembling hands. You're home early, she said, not meeting his eyes in the reflection. Job finished sooner than expected. Silas leaned against the door frame. Something wrong? No, just surprised. She turned, finally looking at him with a too bright smile. Merritt stopped by to drop off those books I wanted to borrow. Silas nodded. It was plausible. His brother was always lending Arlena books, music, movies, claiming to culture her since Silas had no taste. That was nice of him. You just missed him, she added quickly. Silas crossed to the closet to hang up his jacket. That's when he saw it, a button from one of Merritt's sport coats, the distinctive brass ones with the school crest. It lay half hidden under the edge of the bed. He said nothing. Just pocketed it when Arlena turned back to the mirror. That night, his suspicion gnawed at him while they ate dinner across from each other. Arlena talked about a client at her PR firm, gesturing animatedly with her fork. They want something edgy, but not offensive. Whatever that means. She rolled her eyes. People hire us for our expertise. Then try to tell us how to do our job. Silas nodded, watching her, the woman he married 4 years ago, the woman who pursued him relentlessly after they met at a fundraiser for veterans who claimed stoicism was mysterious and sexy. Later, while she showered, he checked her phone. The text came from a contact named Nothing Obvious. Just, you make me feel alive. He never will. Silas replaced the phone exactly as he found it. He did not confront her. Not yet. Instead, he began planning. The next day, he ordered the cameras. Small, wireless, easily concealed. One for the bedroom, one for the living room, one for the kitchen. Later, he added one in the nursery after Arlena announced she was pregnant and they converted the guest room. Each night, after she fell asleep, he reviewed the footage. Most days showed nothing unusual. Arlena coming home from work, making dinner, talking on the phone to clients. Normal. Then came the day Merritt visited while Silas was supposedly at a job site in Pittsburgh. The footage showed them in the kitchen first. Talking, laughing, Merritt leaning against the counter too close to Arlena. Then upstairs, the bedroom camera caught everything. Afterward, Arlena said he's so boring, so predictable. Merritt laughed. Silas has always been that way. Even as a kid, Dad used to say he was born middle-aged. He has no idea. Arlena replied, curling against Merritt's side. No idea at all. Silas watched the footage 3 times. Each viewing, his face remained impassive. He saved the file on a folder labeled insurance, then added a password. The next day, he contacted a lab about paternity testing. The day Arlena announced a pregnancy had been a masterpiece of manipulation. She prepared a special dinner, bought his favorite whiskey, and presented him with a tiny pair of work boots. I thought you did not want kids yet. He said cautiously. I changed my mind. She placed his hand on her still flat stomach. We're going to be a family, Silas. He felt something then, something dangerously close to hope. Despite his suspicions, despite the evidence accumulating on his hard drive, he wanted to believe. 2 weeks after that dinner, he accompanied her to the ultrasound appointment. While she changed into the hospital gown, he carefully collected a sample of tissue from her hairbrush. The lab had required something from him as well, which he provided the same day. The results had taken 3 agonizing weeks. When they arrived, he opened the envelope in his truck parked outside his shop. The clinical language could not soften the blow. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. Silas had folded the paper carefully, tucked it back into the envelope, and gone to work as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Now, staring at his computer screen in the aftermath of the baby shower disaster, Silas reviewed the plan he'd been crafting for months. It was not enough to simply leave. It was not enough to divorce her quietly. Arlena and Merritt had conspired not just to betray him, but to trap him financially, legally, emotionally. They planned to use his sense of duty, his integrity against him. They would pay for that. Both of them. His phone buzzed with another message from Arlena. "Your mother is looking for you." She's worried. We all worried. Silas turned the phone face down on his desk. Let them worry. He had work to do. Silas sat in his truck outside Roosevelt High School, watching students stream through the front doors. Merritt would be in his classroom already, probably writing the day's lesson on the whiteboard with that showmanship he always had. The history teacher who made the past come alive. The faculty favorite. The respected community member. Not for much longer. Silas opened his laptop and connected to the school's public Wi-Fi. The email had been drafted days ago, waiting for this moment. Addressed to the superintendent, the school board, and the president of the PDA. Subject line: ethical concern. Staff misconduct. Attached was a carefully edited video showing Merritt and Arlena in Silas' home. Time stamped during school hours when Merritt should have been teaching. Nothing explicit. Silas was not cruel enough to share that, but enough to raise serious questions about Merritt's character and judgment. He had sinned, then drove away before anyone could notice him. The response came faster than he expected. By noon, his mother was calling. "Silas Michael Cordell, you answer me right now." Maribel's voice held the same steel it had when he was child. "What is happening?" "The school just put Merritt on administrative leave." "Something about an investigation." "Did they say why?" Silas kept his tone neutral. "No, but he called me crying Silas. Said you lost your mind that you making up stories about him and Arlena." "Did he mention the DNA test?" A long pause. "What DNA test?" "Ask him," Silas said. "Ask him if the baby is mine." Another longer pause. Then Silas, "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your favorite son has been sleeping with my wife. I'm saying they plan to pass his child off his mind. I'm saying I have proof. That's not possible. Merritt would not. The baby is not my mom. The test confirms it." "Oh God," her voice faltered. "Are you sure? Those tests can be wrong." "Not this one. I need to talk to Merritt. Get his side." "You do that," Silas said and hung up. The next phase was already in motion. He created an anonymous email account and sent select audio clips to the local parenting blog run by Jessica Klein, whose son had been in Merritt's class the previous year. The clips featured Arlena discussing how she manipulated 2 dumb brothers, one too boring, one too eager to please, by the end of the day. The blog had posted a cryptic entry about disturbing revelations regarding a beloved local teacher. No names, but in a town this size, it would not take long for people to connect the dots as Silas's phone buzzed with text from Arlena throughout the afternoon. "What did you do?" "The school called Merritt in for an emergency meeting." "Are you trying to ruin us?" "Answer me 5:00. He finally replied, "I'm not ruining anyone. The truth is doing that." That evening, he parked outside the small apartment complex where V lived. He knew Arlena would go there eventually. Sure enough, at 8:30, her car pulled into the lot. She looked haired. Her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of her usual perfect styling. Silas waited until she'd been inside for 20 minutes, then called V. "I was wondering when you'd reach out." She answered immediately. Your wife is on my couch, having a breakdown. Good, Silas said. Put me on speaker. A pause. Then the quality of the call changed. He could hear Arlena's ragged breathing in the background. You on speaker. V confirmed. Say what you need to say. Arlena. Silas kept his voice even. I want you out of my house by tomorrow night. Take what's yours. Nothing more. Silas, please. Arlena's voice cracked. We need to talk about this. You see, not just. I've heard enough talking. Seen enough too. The cameras caught everything. Cameras. Arlena's voice rose. You've been spying on me. On both of you. In my house. My property. That's illegal. No, actually. Not in Pennsylvania. Not in your own home. Silas had researched this thoroughly. But paternity fraud. That's illegal. Filing false information on a birth certificate. That's illegal. It's not what you think. Arlena began. Stop lying. It's exactly what I think. You and Merritt planned this from the beginning. No, it just happened. We did not plan. You told him I was boring. Predictable. Silas felt his control slipping for the first time. You laughed about it. Both of you. Silence on the other end. Be out by tomorrow night. He repeated. Or the videos go public. All of them. You would not dare. Arlena whispered. Try me. He hung up. Then sat in his truck. Hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of their betrayal. Not just the infidelity he could have forgiven that eventually, but the calculated deception. The plot to trap him with another man's child. His own brother's child. His phone rang again. V. She's gone to the bathroom. V said quickly. Silas, there's something you should know. What? This whole thing, it was not just about Merritt. It was never just about him. What do you mean? Arlena. V hesitated. She had a plan. She wanted to claim on the Cordell property. When you would not agree to have kids right away, she got frustrated. Merritt was convenient. Silas absorbed this. How do you know this? She told me. Not all at once, but pieces over time. I thought. V's voice faltered. I thought she really loved you at first. Then I realized she loved what you represented. Stability. Land. The Cordell name. And Merritt. Was he part of the plan from the beginning? No. That came later. When you kept putting off having a family. B paused. I should have told you. I'm sorry. Why tell me now? Because what she did was wrong. What they both did. Another pause. And because she's talking about claiming you were abusive. Creating a narrative. Silas closed his eyes briefly. Of course she was. Arlena worked in PR. She knew how to spin a story. Thanks for the warning. He said finally. What are you going to do? What I've been doing. Follow the plan. After hanging up, Silas started his truck and drove to the one place he knew would be empty, his house. Arlena would be staying with V tonight. Tomorrow he'd change the locks. But tonight he needed to collect a few things. The house was dark when he arrived. Inside, he went straight to the safe in his office. Entering the combination and removing his stack of documents. The deed to the house. Insurance policies. His grandfather's watch. A small box containing his service medals that in the bedroom. He ignored the rumpled sheets and gathered some clothes. His toiletries. The photo of his father that had always sat on his nightstand. Nothing else mattered that he was leaving. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Celia Ray. Your mother gave me your number. I hear you need a good attorney. Call me tomorrow. 8 a.m. sharp. Silas almost smiled. Celia Ray was the toughest divorce lawyer in 3 counties. His mother had made her choice. The whispers started small, as they always do in small towns. A raised eyebrow at the supermarket. A significant look between parents at the gas station. By the 3rd day after the baby shower, the whispers had grown to murmurs. Silas noticed it first at his shop. Mrs. Hargrove dropping off her weekly flower delivery lingered by the counter. "Such a shame about your brother," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Always seemed like such a nice young man." Silas nodded once, saying nothing. "And in his position of trust too," she continued, "working with impressionable young people." "Well," she pat his arm. "You better off knowing these things, dear. Better now than later." Similar conversations happened throughout the day. The UPS driver. A client picking up a custom railing. The owner of the diner when Silas stopped for lunch. Everyone careful not to say too much, but saying everything all the same. Merritt called twice. Silas let it go to voicemail both times. "Silas, please. They suspended me pending an investigation. People are talking. I see not. I can fix this. We can fix this. Just call me back." And later, "Mom is devastated." "Is that what you wanted? To hurt everyone around you? Call me." Damn it. Silas did not call. Instead, he drove to his lawyer's office for their second meeting in 3 days. Celia Ray was in her 60s with steel gray hair and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Her office smelled of leather and peppermint tea. "Your wife's attorney called this morning," she said without preamble. The proposing mediation mentioned something about shared assets and potential custody arrangements. "No," Silas said firmly. "No mediation. No shared custody. That's what I told them." Celia smiled thinly. "I also mentioned we have evidence making any custody claim moot." That got their attention. "What's next?" "We file everything simultaneously. Divorce petition, citing adultery and fraud. Defamation countersuit to head off any abuse allegations she might try to manufacture, custody dismissal based on the DNA evidence." She tapped her pen against the legal pad in front of her. It hit like a tornado. "Are you sure you ready for that?" Silas nodded. "I want this finished. It will not be quick. We clean. There will be fallout. I've survived worse." Celia studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right, then. We file tomorrow." As Silas left the office, his phone buzzed with a notification. The notification was from a community Facebook group he rarely checked. Someone had posted a clip, one of the audio recordings he sent anonymously to the parenting blog. In it, Arlena's voice was crystal clear. "Silas is so boring. So rigid. I need someone who makes me feel alive." The comments were already piling up beneath the post. "OMG, is that Arlena Cordell? Always thought she was fake, poor Silas. What about the baby?" Silas turned off his phone. The next phase would happen without his direct involvement. The truth, once released, would find its own path. That evening, he returned to the small apartment he rented on the other side of town. It was sparse: a bed, a table, 2 chairs, the bare essentials. He lived with less during his deployments that he was unpacking groceries when someone knocked on the door. Through the peephole, he saw V, shifting nervously from foot to foot. When he opened the door, she pushed past him without waiting for an invitation. "It's getting ugly out there," she said, dropping her purse on his table. "That audio clip is everywhere. Arlena's PR firm called her in today. They lost 3 clients already, all citing moral clauses in their contracts." Silas continued putting away his groceries. "Not my problem. She's saying you edited the recordings. They were setting her up. Watch him carefully. She's also saying you were controlling. That you installed those cameras because you were paranoid. Is that what you came to tell me?" "No." We took a deep breath. "I came because she asked me to talk to you, to convince you to stop whatever you planning next." "And what did you tell her?" That I do not have that kind of influence over you. B paused. But I also told her she made her bed. Silas almost smiled at that. Anything else? V hesitated. There's something she did not want me to tell you. Something she does not think you know. What's that? She was using Merritt. Just like she used you. V sat down at the table. Originally, she just wanted to trap you with a baby to secure her claim on the Cordell property, the land, the shop, everything. When you kept putting it off, saying you were not ready for kids yet, she got impatient. So she turned to Merritt. Silas's voice was flat. Yes. But not because she loves him. Because he was convenient. Because he's always had a thing for her. Because he's a Cordell too. Silas absorbed this, feeling a strange cold clarity. You sure about this? She told me herself. Months ago, when she first found out she was pregnant, she laughed about it. V's face hardened at the memory. Said it was perfect because the baby would be a Cordell either way. Said Merritt was pathetically easy to manipulate. Why are you telling me this now? Because I should have told you sooner. V met his eyes. And because you deserve to know exactly what kind of people you dealing with. After she left, Silas sat at the table for a long time, turning this new information over in his mind. He'd known Arlena was manipulative. He'd known Merritt was weak. But the calculated nature of the deception still surprised him. His phone rang. His mother. I'm at the lawyer's office. Maribel said without greeting. Looking at the trust paperwork. What trust? Your father's trust. The one that controls the estate. Her voice was clipped businesslike. Currently, it's divided equally between you and Merritt. I'm changing that. Silas had not expected this. Ma, do not try to talk me out of it. Your brother lied to my face yesterday. Looked me in the eye and denied everything until I showed him the DNA test results you sent me. A pause. I raised him better than that. The trust was Dad's wish. You do not have to. Your father would have done the same thing. He valued integrity above all else. Another pause. That's what he saw in you. What I did not appreciate enough. Silas said nothing. Unsure how to respond to this unprecedented acknowledgement. The changes will be filed tomorrow. Maribel continued. Merritt gets nothing. The house, the land, the business, it all goes to you eventually. He's still your son, Silas said quietly. Yes, and I'll always love him. Her voice hardened, but he made his choice. After hanging up, Silas walked to the window of his apartment and looked out at the darkening sky. The scales had tipped. Momentum gathering behind his carefully orchestrated plan. Tomorrow, the legal filings would make everything public and official. There would be no going back that he should have felt satisfaction. Instead, he felt only a grim resolve to see this through to the end. The courthouse buzzed with whispered conversations as Silas followed Celia, Ray down the marble corridor. News of the Cordell family drama had spread throughout the county, drawing curious onlookers and gossip-hungry locals to the morning's proceedings. Remember, Celia murmured as they approached the courtroom. Let me do the talking. No matter what accusations fly, no matter how provoked you feel, you say nothing without my go-ahead. Silas nodded once. He'd worn his darkest suit, the one from his father's funeral, polished shoes, clean-shaven, the model of respectability. Inside, Arlena already sat at the opposite table with her attorney, a young man in an expensive suit who looked nervous. She dressed carefully to a conservative navy dress that minimized her pregnancy. Hair pulled back simply, minimal makeup to emphasize her vulnerability. When she saw Silas, she attempted a tremulous smile. He looked through her as if she were not there. The judge entered and the proceedings began. What followed was exactly the tornado Celia had predicted. The simultaneous filings, divorce petition, defamation countersuit, custody dismissal clearly caught Arlena's attorney off guard. He stammered through his objections as Celia methodically presented their evidence. Your Honor, we have clear and convincing proof of both adultery and paternity fraud, she stated, passing copies of the DNA test to the clerk. Additionally, Mrs. Cordell has begun spreading false allegations of abuse to salvage a reputation, which is why we filed the defamation countersuit. These are serious claims. The judge said, reviewing the documents. Mrs. Cordell, do you wish to respond? Arlena leaned toward her attorney, whispering urgently. He stood straightening his tie. Your Honor, my client categorically denies these accusations. The alleged evidence was obtained through illegal surveillance. Not illegal. Celia interrupted smoothly. Mr. Cordell installed security cameras in his own home, which is perfectly legal in Pennsylvania. We have documentation confirming this. The judge frowned. What about these abuse allegations? Fabrications, Your Honor, Celia replied. Mrs. Cordell began circulating these claims only after the discovery of her infidelity. We have documented her previously describing Mr. Cordell as boring and predictable, hardly the language one would use to describe an abusive spouse. Arlena's attorney tried again. Your Honor, regardless of these other matters, the child's welfare must be considered. My client is 7 months pregnant. With a child that DNA testing has conclusively proven is not Mr. Cordell's. Celia finished for him, which makes any custody discussion moot. The judge sighed heavily. This is quite a mess. I'm ordering temporary measures while we sort this out. He turned to Silas, attorney. A mess. Ray, your client may retain sole possession of the marital home and business during proceedings. He then addressed Arlena's attorney. Your client will refrain from making any public statements regarding alleged abuse without evidence, and both parties will submit to further DNA testing through the court's approved facility. As they left the courtroom, reporters clustered at the bottom of the courthouse steps. Celia steered Silas toward a side exit. Round one to us, she said quietly, but this is just the beginning. Silas nodded, feeling nothing but cold determination. What's next? They try to drag this out. Play for sympathy because of the pregnancy. Maybe attempt to challenge the DNA results, though that's a losing battle. Celia glanced at him. The real fight will be over assets. She want half of everything. She get nothing. Silas said firmly. That's the plan, but it will not be easy. Celia, check her watch. I'll call you tomorrow with the next steps. As they reached the parking lot, Silas caught sight of Merritt leaning against a car several spaces away. His brother looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes, his typically neat appearance disheveled. Silas, Merritt called, pushing off the car and hurrying toward them. Please just talk to me for 5 minutes. Celia stepped between them. Mr. Cordell, my client has nothing to say to you. Any communication should go through proper channels. Silas, come on, Merritt pleaded, trying to look past her. We brothers. Family, this has gone too far. Silas met his brother's eyes for the first time since the baby shower. We stopped being family the moment you betrayed me. It was not like that. It just happened. We never meant to. Save it for someone who cares, Silas said, walking past him toward his truck. They suspended me permanently. Merritt called after him, voice cracking, 10 years teaching Silas, my whole career, gone. Silas paused and turned back. You reap what you plant. The drive back to his apartment was silent. Silas felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only the steady resolve to see justice done. Not revenge, he told himself. Justice. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Heard about Cord. Good start. Dinner tonight. For the first time in days, Silas felt something other than cold determination. He texted back, yes. 6 p.m. The response came immediately. I'll cook. Your favorite. That evening, Silas drove to his child at home, a sturdy farmhouse that had been in the Cordell family for generations. Maribel met him at the door. Her silver hair pulled back in its usual severe bun, her face unreadable. You look tired, she said by way of greeting, ushering him inside. The house smelled of pot roast and fresh bread. The same meal she made every Sunday when he was growing up. They ate at the kitchen table. The formal dining room ignored as always. The trust changes are official, Maribel said after they finished eating. Everything comes to you. Silas nodded. Merritt was at the courthouse today. I know. He called me crying again. Maribel's mouth tightened. Said I betrayed him too. That everyone's against him. Are you having second thoughts? No. She met his eyes. Your brother made his choices. Now he faces the consequences. She paused. Just like your father would have wanted. Silas had never heard his mother invoke his father's approval for anything he'd done. The acknowledgement settled something inside him he had not realized was unsettled. There's something else you should know, Maribel continued. Merritt's been staying with friends, but they asked him to leave. Apparently, their teenage daughter is uncomfortable having him in the house, given the rumors. What will he do? I do not know. And right now, I see not bring myself to care. She reached across the table and did something she'd rarely done in his adult life. She took his hand. I'm sorry, Silas. Sorry, I did not see what was happening. Sorry, I always favored him. Silas looked at their joined hands. Unsure how to respond to this unprecedented vulnerability from his stoic mother. You do not have to say anything. She continued. Just know that I'm on your side all the way. As he drove back to his apartment that night, Silas felt a momentum shift even further in his favor. The town was turning. His mother had chosen sides. The legal system was working as it should. Even the weather seemed to mirror his mood. A clearing sky after days of overcast gloom. Tomorrow would bring the next phase of his plan. The final phase, if everything went according to schedule. Silas was ready. Silas arrived at his metal shop before dawn, unlocking the front door in the gray morning light. Inside, he went through his routine with methodical precision, starting the coffee pot, checking emails, reviewing the day's work orders. Normal actions that anchored him amid the chaos of everything else. Rob and Miguel, the two veterans he'd hired after their service, arrived at 7 sharp. They'd been keeping the business running smoothly during Silas' recent absences, asking no questions beyond whether he was okay. Morning, boss. Rob said, hanging his jacket on the hook by the door. Heard the courthouse was interesting yesterday. Silas nodded once. Small towns. No secrets. If you need anything, Miguel added quietly. Just say the word. Thanks, Silas replied. For now, just business as usual. The morning passed in the comforting routine of the shop, the smell of hot metal, the precise measurements, the satisfaction of creating something solid and lasting. Silas was finishing a custom railing when his phone rang. Celia, you need to come to my office, she said, without preamble. Arlene's attorney reached out. They want to discuss a settlement. What kind of settlement? The kind where they realized they losing badly. A pause. Can you be here at 1? I'll be there. Silas cleaned up his workstation, told Rob he was in charge for the afternoon, and drove straight to Celia's office. She was waiting for him at the reception desk, a folder tucked under her arm. They desperate, she said, leading him to the conference room. The PR firm fired Arlene this morning. Apparently, another recording surfaced, this one of her mocking a client while in bed with Merritt. Silas said nothing. He had not released that particular clip. The local parenting blog has been relentless. Celia continued. Jessica Klein seems to have a personal vendetta. Her son was in Merritt class last year. Silas said quietly. Merritt gave him a C when he deserved an A. Said the boy was not applying himself. Celia raised an eyebrow. You've done your homework. Always. Inside the conference room, Arlene's attorney waited alone. He rose when they entered, extending his hand to Celia, who shook it briefly. They all sat at the long table. Where's your client? Celia asked. She's not feeling well. The attorney replied, straightening his tie nervously. The stress of the situation in her condition, I'm sure. Celia opened her folder. You mentioned a settlement proposal. Yes. He slid a document across the table. Mrs. Cordell is willing to admit to the indiscretion and agree to a no-fault divorce. She is asking for a one-time payment of $50,000 and forgiveness of any legal fees in exchange for walking away cleanly. Celia glanced at the document, then passed it to Silas without comment. He scanned it quickly, noting the carefully worded admissions of infidelity alongside the monetary demands. "No," he said simply, sliding the paper back. The attorney blinked. "Perhaps you did not see the part where Mrs. Cordell agrees to drop all allegations of allegations she fabricated," Celia interjected. "My client is not interested in paying for your client's lies. $50,000 is a small price to make this go away quickly and quietly." The attorney insisted, a note of desperation creeping into his voice. "Mrs. Cordell is pregnant, facing financial ruin. Not my client's problem." Celia cut in. "Here's our counteroffer." She slid a document across the table. "Complete divorce. No financial support of any kind. Full retraction of all abuse allegations. An assigned statement acknowledging paternity fraud." The attorney scanned the document, his face paling. This would destroy her." "She destroyed herself," Silas said quietly. "Am I brother with her? We need time to consider." 24 hours, Celia stated firmly. "After that, we proceed with the full court case, including all evidence of fraud and defamation." After the attorney left, Celia turned to Silas. "He'll come back with a counter. They always do. Does not matter. I will not agree to anything that gives her a cent." Celia studied him. "This is not just about the money for you. Is it?" "No." "What do you want?" Silas really want. He considered the question. "Justice. Consequences. For both of them." And after that, Silas had no answer. He had not thought beyond the plan, beyond seeing it through to completion. As he left Celia's office, his phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Need to see you. Important." Home now that he drove directly to the farmhouse, finding Maribel pacing the front porch. She looked up as his truck approached, her face tight with anger. "Merritt was here," she said as soon as he stepped out of the vehicle, demanding his share of the trust, said he can test the changes in court. "Can he?" "No, not successfully. Your father made me the sole trustee with full discretion." She let him inside. "But that's not why I called you." It's what he said before he left. In the kitchen, Maribel handed Silas a mug of coffee, her hand trembling slightly. "He said Arlena was never just after the Cordell name or property. She wanted to shop your business." Maribel's eyes hardened. "Apparently, she has a cousin in development who's been trying to buy that land for years. The plan was to eventually convince you to sell the business, claiming you needed money for the baby's future." Silas absorbed this, feeling a strange, cold clarity wash over him. And Merritt was supposed to get a cut. Maribel's voice shook with barely contained fury. "My own son, conspiring to steal his brother's livelihood, his father's legacy. You believe him? Why would he admit this now? Because he's desperate. Because he's lost everything else. Because," she paused. "Because I think he finally realizes what he's done. Too late, of course." Silas sat at the kitchen table, turning his coffee mug slowly between his palms. "Where is he now?" "I do not know. I told him to leave and not come back." Maribel joined him at the table. "He's not the son I raised. Neither of you got enough of your father in you. But at least you got his integrity." The unexpected praise from his mother settled something in Silas. Not satisfaction, he was beyond that now, but a sense of clarity. Everything was aligned. The final pieces were falling into place. "The hearing is Monday," he said. "The judge will make his ruling." Maribel nodded. "I'll be there." Every parent should witness their children's most important moments, even the terrible ones. As Silas drove back to his apartment, he thought about his father, the stoic metal worker who taught him the business, who devalued honesty and hard work above all else. What would he have done in this situation? Probably exactly what Silas was doing. The thought was oddly comforting. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It's Merritt. Please. One conversation. Tomorrow. Miller's Diner. 8 a.m. I'll be there whether you come or not. Silas did not respond. He did not need to. Tomorrow was already planned. Each element carefully timed and placed. Merritt's message changed nothing. That night, he could not sleep. He sat at the small kitchen table in his apartment, reviewing the files on his laptop, ensuring everything was in order for the final act. The recordings. The financial documents showing the property Arlena's cousin had been buying up around the shop. The text messages between Merritt and Arlena discussing their plans for after the baby was born. Everything documented. Everything in its place. Just as was not about emotion, Silas reminded himself. It was about truth. Cold, hard, undeniable truth that ACT 3. The revenge and the re-scene 1. Court's room showed on the courthouse steps were crowded with onlookers and a few local reporters when Silas arrived with Celia Ray on Monday morning. News of the Cordell scandal had spread throughout the county, drawing curious spectators to what promised to be the dramatic inclusion of a salacious story. Silas walked through them without making eye contact, focused only on the heavy doors ahead. Inside, the courtroom was already nearly full. He spotted his mother in the front row, her back straight, her face impassive. She nodded once as he passed. Arlena sat at the opposite table with her attorney. She clearly dressed for maximum sympathy, a modest maternity dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a simple style. When she saw Silas, she attempted a tremulous smile. He looked through her as if she were not there. Merritt sat in the back row alone. He had not shaved in days. And his clothes looked slept in. The once popular teacher had become a pariah in a matter of weeks. He caught Silas' eye, mouthing please across the crowded room. Silas turned away, the judge entered, and the proceedings began. Arlena's attorney went first, attempting to paint a picture of a troubled marriage and a confused, frightened pregnant woman. Your Honor, my client acknowledges that indiscretion with Mr. Cordell's brother, he began cautiously. But she maintains that the marriage was already failing due to Mr. Cordell's controlling behavior. The surveillance cameras he installed throughout their home are evidence of. Objection, Celia interrupted. Counsel is attempting to reframe legally obtained evidence as something sinister. Sustained, the judge ruled. Stick to the facts, counselor. The attorney shifted tactics. Your Honor, regardless of how we got here, there's an unborn child to consider. My client is 7 months pregnant, facing financial ruin and public humiliation. We ask the court to consider a fair division of assets and appropriate support. The child is not Mr. Cordell's, Celia pointed out. As proven by DNA testing, nevertheless, this child will be born into the Cordell family, the attorney pressed. And Mrs. Cordell was led to believe. Your Honor, Celia cut in sharply. Let's be clear about what happened here. Mrs. Cordell engaged in a prolonged affair with her husband's brother, became pregnant and attempted to pass the child off as Mr. Cordell's. This was not a simple indiscretion. It was a calculated fraud. The judge frowned. That's a serious accusation, Ms. Ray. Do you have evidence beyond the DNA test? We do, Your Honor. Celia nodded to Silas, who opened his laptop and connected it to the courtroom's display system. With the court's permission, we'd like to present several relevant recordings. The judge hesitated, then nodded. Proceed. Silas pulled up the first video, Arlena and Merritt in the kitchen of his home. The date stamp clearly visible. Turn it up. The judge instructed the clerk on screen. Arlena leaned against the counter, laughing as Merritt poured wine. He has no idea, she said, accepting a glass. No idea at all. Are you sure about this? Merritt asked, moving closer. The baby, it's perfect. Arlena replied, a Cordell baby one way or another. And once there, a child, he'll never let go of the family property. That's how Silas is all about legacy and duty. And us. Merritt reached for her hand. Arlena smiled, setting down her wine. You're more fun than your brother. But this is not about fun. It's about planning for the future. The courtroom was completely silent as the video continued, showing Arlena and Merritt moving upstairs to the bedroom. Silas skipped ahead to their conversation afterward. He's so boring. Arlena said on screen, curled against Merritt's side. So rigid, so predictable. He's always been that way. Merritt replied, even his kids. Dad used to say he was born middle-aged. He has no idea. Arlena repeated, laughing. No idea at all. Silas stopped the video. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Even the judge seemed momentarily stunned. There's more. Your Honor, Celia said into the silence. Mrs. Cordell has been systematically lying not just to my client, but to this court. She claimed abuse where there was none. She claimed ignorance of paternity when these recordings clearly show otherwise. And most importantly, she nodded to Silas again that he switched to a different file text messages between Arlena and a contact named Ryan C. Ryan C. Any progress on convincing him to sell the shop? Arlena, working on it. Baby news has him thinking about the future. Ryan C. Dad's getting impatient. That land is the key to the whole development. Arlena, tell Uncle Phil to relax. I've got this handled. Ryan Collins, Celia explained. Mrs. Cordell's cousin, their family development company has been buying up properties around Mr. Cordell's metal shop for years. This was not just infidelity. It was a calculated plan to gain control of valuable property. Arlena's face had drained of color. She clutched her attorney's arm, whispering frantically across the courtroom. Merritt looked physically ill. Your Honor, Arlena's attorney began. These messages could be taken out of context. There is no context Celia cut in that makes this anything other than what it is: fraud, conspiracy, and attempted theft. The judge studied the evidence on the screen, then turned to Arlena. Mrs. Cordell, do you wish to respond to these allegations? Arlena rose shakily, one hand resting on her swollen belly. Your Honor, I never meant to hurt anyone. Things got complicated, out of control. Her voice broke. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I'm about to be a mother. I need what you need. The judge interrupted is not relevant to this court's decision. What is relevant is what you did. He turned to Silas. And what your husband deserves after such profound deception. Silas sat immobile, his face expressionless as the judge continued. Based on the overwhelming evidence presented, this court grants the petition for immediate divorce on grounds of adultery and fraud. Mr. Cordell owes no financial support whatsoever, as the child is conclusively not his. The judge's voice hardened. Furthermore, all allegations of abuse are stricken from the record as unfounded and potentially defamatory. Arlena began to cry, shoulders shaking. Her attorney patted her arm awkwardly. Mrs. Cordell, the judge added, I strongly suggest you pursue no further legal action in this matter. The evidence presented today could easily support criminal charges of fraud. Consider yourself fortunate that your ex-husband has not pursued that option. As the judge declared the proceedings concluded, the courtroom erupted in whispers. Silas closed his laptop and rose, looking at Arlena for the first time since entering the courtroom. Her face was streaked with tears. Her carefully constructed image of vulnerability replaced by genuine distress. You've ruined everything, she whispered. Are you happy now? I did not ruin anything, Silas replied quietly. You did that yourself. As he turned to leave, he caught sight of Merritt slipping out the back door of the courtroom. His brother's shoulders were hunched, his head down. The once proud teacher reduced to a shadow. Outside, reporters clustered at the bottom of the courthouse steps, cameras ready. Silas steered Silas toward a side exit. Complete victory, she said. Could not have gone better if we descripted it. Silas nodded, feeling nothing but a cold, clear certainty that justice had been done. Not revenge justice. What now? Silas asked as they reached the parking lot. Now I rebuild. Silas said simply. Maribel was waiting by his truck. Her face lined with emotion he could not quite read. When he approached, she did something she'd rarely done in his adult life. She hugged him, fierce and tight. "Your father would be proud," she whispered. "So proud." Silas returned the embrace awkwardly, surprised by the sudden display of affection. "Come to dinner tonight," Maribel said, stepping back. "We should talk about the future." "I'll be there," Silas promised. As he drove away from the courthouse, he felt something shifting inside him, not satisfaction. Not exactly, but perhaps the beginning of closure. The plan had worked perfectly. Justice had been served. Now came the harder part. Figuring out what came next. 3 weeks later, Silas stood in the same barn where the baby shower had unfolded, watching as a small group of guests mingled. The space had been transformed again. This time with his own hands, simple wooden tables. Mason jars filled with wildflowers, strings of plain white lights across the rafters. Rob and Miguel from the shop were there with their families. A few loyal clients who stood by him through the scandal. His mother, looking more at ease than he'd seen her in years. And somewhat surprisingly, who reached out after the court hearing to check on him, and Arlena. No merit. Their absence hung in the air like a relief sigh. "Nice turnout," Rob commented, joining Silas by the makeshift bar. "People respect what you did. How you handled it." Silas nodded once. "Thanks for coming. Would not miss it." Rob clapped him on the shoulder. "So what's this all about anyway? You're not exactly known for throwing parties." "Closure," Silas said simply, "and a new beginning." The gathering was not large, but felt right. These were people who stood by him, who believed in him when everything was falling apart. People who valued truth and integrity, the things that mattered. As the evening progressed, Silas found himself relaxing slightly. The weight of the past months had not disappeared. But it had shifted, become more manageable. When Maribel signaled that dinner was ready, he took his place at the head of the main table. The conversation flowed around him, talk of the shop's expansion plans. Miguel's son's baseball championship, the unusually warm spring they were having. Normal life continuing despite everything. After the meal, Silas rose and tapped his glass with a knife. The chatter died down as everyone turned toward him expectantly. "I'm not one for speeches," he began, his deep voice carrying across the barn. "But I wanted to thank you all for coming tonight. For standing by me these past months." Nods and murmurs of support rippled through the small crowd. "A lot has changed, not all of it good." Silas paused, gathering his thoughts. "But my father used to say that it's not what happens to you that matters, it's how you respond." Here, someone called. Silas raised his glass to integrity. "May those who fake it choke on the taste to integrity," the guests echoed, raising their glasses as they drank. Silas caught his mother's eye across the table. She nodded once. A gesture of approval she rarely offered in his childhood. Something shifted between them in that moment, a new understanding, a fresh start. Later, as guests began to leave, Vi approached him by the barn door. "That was a good toast," she said. "Pointed but good. Thanks for coming." Silas replied. "Was not sure you would." "I almost did not." Vi tucked her hands into her jacket pockets. "Felt weird, given everything. But I wanted you to know I had nothing to do with her plans. I should have told you sooner what she was up to. You told me when it counted." Vi studied him for a moment. "You doing okay?" "Really?" Silas considered the question. "Getting there." "Good." She hesitated. "There's something else you should know. Arlena's left town. Gone to stay with her parents in Ohio until the baby comes. Not my concern anymore." "I know. Just thought you want to know." Vi pulled her keys from her pocket. "Take care of yourself, Silas." After she left, Silas helped his mother clean up, working in companionable silence as they had so many times over the years. When they finished, Maribel sat at one of the tables, gesturing for him to join her. "I talked to Merritt yesterday," she said without preamble. Silas stiffened slightly. "How is he broken?" "Lost. Maribel's face showed no sympathy, only weary acceptance. He's taken a night job teaching GED classes in Harrisburg, living in some awful apartment. Says no school district will touch him after what happened. He made his choices, Silas said. Yes, he did. Maribel reached across the table and took his hand. Just like you made yours. The difference is, you can look in a mirror each morning. They sat in silence for a moment. The weight of everything that had happened settling around them. Your father would be proud of the man you've become. Maribel said finally, I am too. Should have told you that more often. Silas squeezed her hand briefly and used to this open affection from his stoic mother. Thanks, Ma. As he drove home that night to his apartment, still sparse, still temporary, Silas felt something he had not experienced in months. Possibility. The worst was over. Justice had been served. Now came the rebuilding that he was almost home when his phone buzzed with a text from V. There's a package for you at my place. Came yesterday. Thought you might want it tonight. Curious, Silas changed direction and drove to V's apartment complex. She was waiting on the front steps, a small padded envelope in her hands. Do not know who sent it, she said, handing it over. No return address. Silas examined the envelope. His name and V's address were printed in block letters, no handwriting to recognize. You want coming while you open it? V offered. No, but thanks. Silas tucked the envelope under his arm. I'll let you know if it's anything important. Back in his truck, he opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a USB drive labeled Simply Truth and a yellow sticky note with 8 words. You burned your world for someone who was already lighting matches. Silas sat at his kitchen table, staring at the USB drive. The handwriting on the sticky note was not Merritt's, too neat, too precise. Not Arlene's either. It was past midnight, but sleep was far from his mind that he plugged the drive into his laptop and opened the single video file it contained. The footage showed what appeared to be a hotel room, tasteful, anonymous, expensive. The timestamp indicated it was from 4 months ago. Arlene entered the frame, looking over her shoulder as if checking for followers. Moments later, a man joined her, not Merritt, but someone else. Tall, well-dressed, vaguely familiar. When he turned toward the camera, Silas recognized him. Councilman Peter Walsh, head of the local zoning board and very much married to someone who was not Arlene. The video had no sound, but it did not need any. The two embraced immediately, familiar and practiced. Clearly not their first meeting. Arlene laughed at something Walsh said, throwing her head back in that practiced way Silas knew so well as the footage continued. Silas felt a strange sense of detachment. No anger. No hurt, those emotions belonged to the past. Just a cold, clear understanding, slotting into place. Merritt had been a pawn to a convenient tool, just as Silas had been to he closed the video before it went further than notice the text document also on the drive. Opening it, he found a brief message footage anonymously delivered to my office yesterday. I thought you should see it. Arlene was playing a longer game than any of us realized. Walsh has been shepherding zoning changes that benefit Collins' development for years. Connect the dots. See our silly array. It made sense she'd send this through V rather than directly to him. Plausible deniability if the footage ever became public. Silas leaned back in his chair, absorbing this final piece of the puzzle. Arlene had not just been trying to secure the Cordell property for her family's development company. She'd been working both sides, sleeping with the councilman who could push through the necessary zoning changes while simultaneously trying to manipulate Silas and is selling the shop and Merritt just collateral damage, a tool to create a Cordell heir who could strengthen her claim, disposable once his usefulness ended. Silas copied the video to his own secure drive, then carefully wiped the USB clean of fingerprints. He slipped it into a new envelope, addressed it to Merritt with the same sticky note attached and set it aside to mail tomorrow. His brother deserved to know the full truth. Not out of kindness, Silas was not feeling particularly kind, but because truth was the one thing he still believed in absolutely. The next morning he dropped the envelope in a mailbox across town, then drove to his shop. The familiar routine grounded him, checking orders, reviewing designs, the physical work of shaping metal. By noon, he'd almost forgotten about the USB drive, then his phone rang. "Celia, did you get my delivery?" she asked without preamble. "Yes." "Interesting development, do not you think?" "Very." Silas stepped outside the shop for privacy. "How did you get it?" "As I said in the note, anonymous delivery. But if I had to guess, someone at that hotel has been collecting insurance." A pause. "Walsh has made enemies over the years." "What now?" "Nothing as far as I'm concerned. Your case is settled. This is just information." Silas understood what she was not saying. The footage was leverage if he ever needed it. Against Walsh. Against the Collins development plans. Against anyone who came after his property. "Thank you," he said simply, "just doing my job." She hesitated. "By the way, have you heard? Arlena's cousin's company withdrew their application for rezoning the area around your shop. Suddenly decided it was not a viable location." "Is that so?" Amazing how quickly priorities can change when certain associations become problematic. After hanging up, Silas returned to his work with renewed focus. The metal under his hands took shape precisely as he intended. Each hammer blow purposeful. Each weld clean and strong. Like his father had taught him. Like he'd always done. That evening, he drove out to the farmhouse for dinner with his mother. A new routine they'd established since the court hearing. As they ate, Maribel mentioned casually that she'd run into Councilman Walsh's wife at the grocery store. Poor woman looked terrible. She commented passing the potatoes. Apparently, there's some scandal brewing. Peter moved out last week. Rumor has it he was caught with someone he should not have been. Silas nodded, saying nothing. Small towns. Maribel continued, watching him carefully. No secrets stay buried forever. No, Silas agreed. They do not. Later, as he was leaving, Maribel handed him a set of keys. "The house is yours now," she said. "No sense you living in that dreary apartment when this place is sitting empty." "What about you?" "I've been thinking about that condo in town near the park." It's time. She squeezed his arm. "This place needs a Cordell-man running it." Always as Silas drove back to his apartment, windows down despite the chill, thinking about his mother's offer. The farmhouse had never felt like his father's than his mother's domain. But perhaps that could change. When he arrived, there was a text waiting from a number he did not recognize. "Got your package. You rewrite." Again, emerit. No begging. No excuses. Just acknowledgement. Silas did not respond. Some bridges could not be rebuilt. Some betrayals went too deep. Instead, he began packing his few possessions, preparing to move back to the farmhouse. Back to Cordell land, where he belonged, not because Arlena had wanted it, not because his mother was giving it up, but because he had earned it through honesty, through integrity, through being exactly who he'd always been. The rest would sort itself out in time. 1 year later. The morning air held the first hint of fall as Silas walked a familiar path through the woods behind the farmhouse. Fallen leaves crunched beneath his boots. The same sound that had accompanied his childhood explorations, his teenage escapes, his adult contemplations. The year had changed much, yet left the essentials untouched. The metal shop was thriving, expanded now to include an art workshop where local veterans could learn the craft. A feature in the regional business magazine had brought new clients, people who appreciated quality work done with integrity. Silas had moved back into the farmhouse, gradually making it his own. His mother seemed content in her condo in town. Hosting bridge games and joining the historical society, she'd always been too busy for before. As for the other's life had delivered its own justice. Arlena was living out of state. Last he'd heard, unemployable in PR after the scandal, cut off by her family when the full extent of her manipulations came to light. The baby had been born early, a boy, now being raised by his biological father. Councilman Walsh, whose career had imploded when his own transgressions became public. His wife had filed for divorce, taking half of everything in the settlement. Now Walsh was suing Arlena for fraud, claiming she manipulated him just as she had the Cordell brothers. Merritt had not returned to town. He was teaching night GED classes at a community college 2 hours away. Silas had seen him once, from a distance, at their mother's birthday dinner. Merritt had looked older, diminished, the confident charm replaced by a wary hesitancy. They had not spoken. Some wounds never healed completely. Some lessons were meant to scar. Silas reached the clearing where he parked his truck that night after the baby shower. So much had started here, or rather, so much had culminated here. The betrayal had begun long before, but it was in this spot that he made the decision to see justice done. He did not regret it. Not the cameras, not the evidence gathering, not the public exposure. In a world that often rewarded deception, truth was the one weapon that never failed. Out of twigs snapped behind him. Silas turned to find V standing at the edge of the clearing, hands tucked into the pockets of her jacket. "Your mom said I might find you out here," she said, stepping forward. "Hope that's okay." "It's fine." Silas nodded toward the path. "Walk back with me." They fell into step beside each other, comfortable in a friendship that had developed slowly over the past year. At first, V had reached out occasionally to pass along information about Arlena or Merritt. Then the check-ins had become more regular, less focused on the past. "How's the workshop expansion going?" she asked. "On schedule, should be finished by Christmas." "In the veterans program, Rob mentioned you got that grant. Starting in January, already have 6 people signed up." They emerged from the woods behind the farmhouse. Silas had replaced the back porch last summer, adding a wider staircase and a proper railing. The metal pieces had been crafted in his shop. Each one precise and strong. "Coffee," he offered, gesturing toward the house. "Sure," V followed him up the steps. "Actually, I came to invite you to something. The salon is hosting a fundraiser for the Veterans Center next month. Thought you might want to be involved, given your new program." Silas considered as he unlocked the back door. "What did you have in mind?" "Maybe display some of the metal work your guys have been creating. People could see what the program produces." She stepped into the kitchen, shrugging off her jacket. "Might get you some new clients, too." "I'll think about it." While Silas made coffee, V wandered around the kitchen, noting the changes he made. The new cabinets, the expanded island, the large windows overlooking the woods. "Place looks good," she commented. "Different, but good." "Thanks." He handed her a mug. "Still work in progress." They sat at the kitchen table, the morning sun streaming through the windows. A comfortable silence settled between them, no need to fill it with words. Silas was not the same man he'd been a year ago. Not broken, not bitter, just sharpened. Like the metals he worked with daily, he'd been tested by fire, hammered by circumstance, and emerged stronger for it. He'd learned who he could trust, who stood by him when everything fell apart, who valued truth over convenience, that he discovered that forgiveness was not always necessary for healing. That justice and revenge were not the same thing. That moving forward did not require forgetting. Most importantly, he remembered who he was at his core, a man of integrity, a man who finished what others started, a man who could look himself in the mirror each morning and recognize the reflection. Not perfect, not unscathed, but unbroken. "You know," V said, breaking the silence. "I ran into Merritt's old principal at the grocery store yesterday. Apparently, the school board is still dealing with fallout from everything. 3 families have transferred their kids to other districts." Silas nodded once. "Actions have consequences." "Yes, they do." V studied him over the rim of her coffee mug. "You ever regret how public it all became? The scandal, the courts, everything?" "No." Silas's answer came without hesitation. "Truth deserves witnesses." V smiled slightly. "That should be the motto for your workshop." "Maybe it will be." Outside, the October wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke. Another season turning, another chapter beginning. Silas Cordell looked out at the land that had been in his family for generations, feeling the weight of its history and the promise of its future. His future, on his terms, not bad. He thought for a man who almost lost everything.